Hey everyone, I'm Nato King, and welcome to Chapter 6 of Folklore. Of course, these are the opening screens of the game again, right from the PlayStation menu. Because once I load my file, we're going to go right into the chapter, and I wanted to take this time to give you a quick recap of what's happened so far. We last left Ellen in the Cursed Village, a netherworld version of Doolin from 17 years ago made up of her memories. And Keats had made his way into the Divine Sanctuary and opened the door that he found there, coming face to face with the hag. So he's finally going to get some answers from her, and we're going to learn what really happened.
You! No! Ellen. Ellen.
Now I finally understand your true intent. Why you came to this village in the first place.
Please, help my daughter.
So that picture was a memento after all. He says that, but really they're up by the ash tree, so I cut out going all the way to the end of the path and then back here. Ooh, we might finally get to see what really happened down there. A Nemo sign, so we're actually going to see for ourselves what happened. But first, it looks like we get a little combat practice. There are no new folks in Chapter 6, just the ones we've already fought so many times before. but in combinations that we haven't seen yet. And I happen to think that the combat music in this chapter is probably my favorite track on the entire soundtrack. Close to that wistful, slow piano music that plays when you're meeting some of the dead in the audience hall. Also, the enemies here seem to drop all kinds of weird items that they don't normally drop. I mean, here we've got pukas, berlachen, and boggarts. And yet we're going to be getting a lot of warm and cold tree nuts, in addition to the normal pulse tree nuts, green ores, and purple dusts. I don't really use Gallybeggar all that much, but he seems to work pretty well against a nice big group like this. Whereas I was probably going for a different folk. There's a lot that's really good against big groups. And this chapter gives you a lot of fun just trying out new things. Of course, this is the first challenge, and it's really tame. Especially when we pull out the big guns. Yeah, I think that'll do it. The item drop rate also seems to be really high in this chapter. I don't know if maybe they're expecting you to be low on certain items and want you to build up your karmas. But at any rate, that's the first challenge done. The door to the next area appears, but there's also a whole bunch of crystals, which of course I need to run around and break, just on the off chance that any of them have items in them. Occasionally they do, but normally it's just a whole bunch of life drops. Not that that's a bad thing. Especially when your life's really low. But we're done. So I guess he figured Regine was gonna die if she stayed in the village? But why? At the very least, we're gonna get to see all the scenes from the past that we've seen, but from a more outside perspective. As we saw there, Cecilia's memory of events is kinda warped. You know, understandable since she was about 5 years old at the time. So it looks like we've got some Patriots and a Broom Bear this time. I think I'm gonna need to load up on the Destroy element for this one. Oh. And also some Padfoots, which are immune to Destroy. The more I think about it, the more I think that Langalan would probably be the perfect choice for fighting the Padfoots, just because I can keep a distance when I'm fighting them. But Berlachen works pretty well too. And while Bally Dead doesn't hurt them, it does give me a nice forward lunge. Trent would probably be really good for that too. I always think of what folks would be useful long after the moment is past. Well, at least they give me a lot of nice prizes. More golden ore now that I'm pretty sure I've exhausted my need for it. Wow, they've got a big radius. Leaving the broom bear until last would probably make the most sense, because then I'd be able to capture it. But on the other hand, it's here. And a bit less annoying to fight than the Padfoots. Pad feet. I got a ruby. And there are already crystals over there. And one of those happens to have a nice prize in it too. An emerald, which kinda went by there really quickly because I sped this up. But you can't really afford to leave the crystals there just because the majority of them are just life drops. Oh, okay, I guess you could. There will be folks that drop rubies and emeralds in Chapter 7. But for now, more cutscene. Well, obviously something happened here. Got another Nemo sign. At this point, I still didn't know whether I was gonna split the video into two or just do it all in one. You can tell by the timestamp which direction I chose to go. It's probably one of my longest videos, but that was a save point that I just passed, and there's one more coming up after 2 more fights. Otherwise, it's a straight shot through the chapter. You get very little control over what's going on. And we have a whole bunch of Anwen. I'm not sure whether fire does more damage to them or draws out their id faster. But as always, it seems like if you hit them again while their id is out, it goes back in. Which can be kind of inconvenient. I don't think Calmia is really doing it for me. Of course, they're immune to Earth. And they're not going to be harmed by ice. Let's see, I know Azrai was vulnerable to ice because I had to kill a bunch of them with Anwen. That Calmia is not my folk. I gotta fight Calmias here too, and Gajard. This is just getting crowded and confusing. We can take something out along the way. I also don't know whether any of these guys will drop life drops if my health gets too low. But there are crystals all the way around already. And as we've already seen, most of them will have life drops, so I'm not really worried about running out of health. Just have to survive near endless onslaughts of folks. And it's really nothing to some of the stuff that I saw in Chapter 5. So, what do we got left? Just one on one, and I guess there's a Gajard way in the back. Again, not sure why I switched to Gallybeggar instead of just keeping the attack that has a combo. On the other hand, 2 hits and it's down. Although it might have taken some hits before. I wasn't really paying much attention. And now I actually can use the extra health. And I took out most of the crystals during the fight, so there's just these 3 left. And now, what happened in Ellen's hut 17 years ago? So it looks like this would be where Cecilia ran to when she was trying to get away from Ryan, and here's where he caught up. And we're face to face with the Gallybeggar. Not that Gallybeggar necessarily has a face, but I seem to recall Barasher being quite effective against it. And I see a couple of, I guess those are Baythair in the background. And that would be a bullseye. And a green quartz. Very nice. If only Ellen were fighting here and getting the green quartz. Not sure that Calmia is actually all that effective, but if I use an attack with a good spread like Durandal, I can probably hit both of them at once. And that one's dead already. Never gave up a red id. But it seems that this last Baythair is the only thing I got left. And that was a nice short one. But of course, shorter doesn't always mean easier. As you can imagine, we'll find out next time. And a ruby is quite a prize. The nice thing about breaking these crystals from a distance with Durandal is I don't even have to aim very accurately. I just have to get somewhere in the neighborhood. Well, it's no surprise at this point. And one final bit of story, one final bit of fighting to piece it all together. Naturally, this is going to be the hardest fight of the bunch. At least in my opinion. We've got a Trent, an Ogma, and a Durandal. All at once. And it's kind of amazing that the Ogma got hung up on the Trent as long as it did. So, yeah, not really wanting to deal with these two. Alright, die already. There we go. Oh, it's not even dead. Alright, I wasted that. Of course, fire isn't going to hurt the Durandal. Might be easier to pick an attack that will if I manage to hit it, but I really want to get rid of the Ogma first, since it's going to die sooner. Alright, and with that dealt with, all I have to do is finish off Durandal, which by itself is no great threat. We already know what types of attacks will work, and freezing it is actually a viable option now. Not sure that Habitrot was definitely the best Earth Elemental to go with, but it's quite strong. And one more emerald for the road. I don't remember there actually being any good rewards here. But on the other hand, I don't actually have to go up the hill. Hobbit works pretty well for that. So it looks like we finally found Ellen in the cursed village. And find out for herself she will, because we're controlling Ellen for the last part of the chapter. Got a book over there, save portal here. And the save portal only gives us the option to save. We don't get to change cloaks or anything here. The only page in the picture book for this chapter shows us shooting at some kind of four-armed monster and looks like finishing it off with electricity. I figure we can do that. Just get my folks set up as the book told me to do. Looks like we already were using Gubboy when we fought the judge. And then I ran back to the flower, forgetting that I can't change cloaks at this point. But it's okay, I'm wearing the only one that's really worth wearing at this point. And here is the alternate skin for the Cloak of Twilight, in case you were curious. You won't be seeing much of it. To be honest, I don't really know what the story behind this enigma is, but it seems that this is what's keeping Ellen in the cursed village. And when it flies that high, it's kind of hard to hit, except for Gubboy's final attack. But once it's in the water, I can go after it, and I honestly don't know what the deal is with that puddle. Like, am I supposed to attack it with electricity while it's in there, or is stepping in the water going to hurt me if those poles get struck by lightning? Anyway, it's close enough to the ground now I can actually hit it with Gubboy. And that seems to be doing plenty of damage and stunning it. Things in the water, of course, I'll stick with my long-range shooty folks. And here I've been saying all this time that I don't like playing shoot-man's games. Well, he's up too high for Gaboy to hit, so I'll use a folk with a little bit more vertical reach on an electric attack. I suppose in a pinch Mabinogion would work here if I didn't have Alhazred, but I do, and it's fully built up. So I'll let it do its thing. I suppose a joint attack by Mabinogion and Alhazred would probably be even better. But really, as you can see, there's nothing really to this fight. That's me not paying attention to where the bullseyes were shooting. They know where the enemy folk is a lot better than I do. See, the lightning keeps hitting those telephone poles. If it's electrocuting the pond, it doesn't look like it. Oh, there's a new attack. Swinging a pole around. Doesn't really seem to be much of a threat. Nothing that this guy does seems to be much of a threat. I mean, maybe I'm just lucky that I'm not standing in any of the places where his attacks had hit me. But they don't seem to do much damage when they do hit. And here he's flown up, so I'll just run in there, hit him with an electrical attack again. Does that hurt him more than normal? Maybe. I seem to have finished the job. And the usual lengthy capture, which ceases to be lengthy as soon as he goes into beat mode. It's all cutscenes from here, and I don't want to talk over them, so enjoy the rest of the video, and I'll see you guys next time when we begin Chapter 7.
Mother, I finally found you.
Ellen, I'm so sorry. When I fell pregnant with you, my life was not easy.
It doesn't matter. What was it like the day I was born?
For one day, everything was radiant. A beautiful July sky, rolling hills of lavender. I was so very happy. A new life, new hope. You comforted me so. I will never forget that day. I couldn't stay with you, but I swore to myself that I would always protect you.
The fairy that watched over me was you, my own mother. Why didn't I realize it sooner?
I'm sorry to put you through such an ordeal.
No, not at all.
And to have left you all alone.
Please, Mother, I was always happy. I hate to think that I ruined your life.
Ruined? Oh, quite the opposite. I live to protect you, my dear Ellen.
Mother...
Ellen... Show me your face. I'm so